Well, thanks for joining us today. This is our class, Stewardship Grace, God's Pathway to Financial Wholeness. I believe God wants all of us to be financially whole, and I think the church is one place where we need to teach this. And financial wholeness, someone could say financial freedom, but I like wholeness because I want to bring in a biblical approach with some solid biblical teaching that I've done on Sunday mornings, that these Wednesday evening classes will be a lot of practical stuff. So if you're in the class with us, then you'll get to ask any questions that you'd like to ask. And many times, because of who's in class and what's going on in class, I may be prompted to do something that I wouldn't be if you weren't here. But it's a grace-filled approach, meaning that many of us, the financial situations that we are in, that we've gotten ourselves in, and really we can't blame anybody else. Sometimes we blame other people. I've done counseling where the husband blamed the wife blames the husband. Say he's the spender, I'm the saver, and so he always spends. I have to keep him out of Home Depot and those other kind of tools places. And he's like, well, I have to keep her out of Kohl's and other, Nordstrom's and all those places. But at the end of the day, we're each responsible for our piece of the pie that we've created. And so this class is about how to correct that, how to get it right, and how to really start over. It's kind of hard to start over because you got history, but you can change some things and actually have a brand new start. So we're going to try and do this in 6 weeks, and we'll do some one-on-one if you'd like to do that. And I have a team of people that can help me to help you in the expert areas where I'm no longer licensed, because I used to be, but since I started in ministry full-time, I don't keep those licenses going. But I can give you the information and direct you to someone who can. So what this program is all about is it's designed to challenge you. So it is, you will be challenged if you will go through the process. If you go through the weekly, especially the homework assignments, and come back the next week, you'll be amazed when you come back and actually put that information to work. So this program is designed to not just challenge you, but to help you. So you'll be challenged, but you have some help along the way, and to encourage you. And whether you are a believer or a non-believer in Jesus, this program will work for you because it's about your financial situation. And as I've always said in the last couple of weeks anyways, there's 3 categories of people when I talk about financial situations. And I want you to become comfortable with what that is. The main one, the most difficult one, is underwater. And I look at and I relate all of these financial situations to water. And so the first one is underwater, meaning that you're in a financial crisis and there are situations that you can't handle. You're drowning in debt. Every dime you make, you already owe it to somebody. That's what underwater means. And I've been in that position before. Many of you probably have. I won't ask you to raise your hand. But it's when no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, every single dime you make, you owe somebody, and you're drowning in debt, and you don't know what, the next step to get out. So we can help you with that. And we're going to talk about that as we go along through the classes. But at the same time, don't feel guilty. I did a message, I thought I did a message Sunday on not being guilty about debt. But there's a scripture in Romans, the 8th chapter, that says, there's therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. Well, that goes with debt too. That goes along with debt. So if you've made a lot of mistakes, if you owe everybody in the world, then you're guilty, you did it, but you don't have to be condemned. You don't have to live with that weight on your shoulder. And we want to show you how to get out of that during this class. The next category is treading water. So you got people that's underwater. Every dime they make, they already owe it to someone else. And then you have people who are treading water, which mean that living paycheck to paycheck. Now those sound a lot alike, and living paycheck to paycheck is similar. For example, if you are out of money before the next paycheck comes, then you live in paycheck to paycheck. You could also be underwater. If you are getting a paycheck and you're underwater, then you are living paycheck to paycheck. Many people underwater, they're, people who are homeless, people who've lost their jobs, people who are in between jobs that weren't prepared for that. Well, paycheck to paycheck, too much debt, meaning that you every dime you make, you still owe it, but you're not underwater. You're able to pay that payment. Underwater means that the debt is growing, and you're drowning. The more even every dime you make, it's already gone. Plus, you need more. Paycheck to paycheck means that you have enough just to make it, and every paycheck is still owed. You have too much debt, too many expenses, and too much month left after the money is gone. So at the end of the money, the month is still going on. You're out of money, and you still got some time to go before the first of next month. You got bills due, and you haven't paid the ones for this month yet. But that's treading water. And how many of you have ever went swimming or before you learned how to swim, if you know how to swim, but you learn how to tread water. But if you couldn't stand up, then all you could do, you get tired after a while. And then you get so tired, you got to do something. You either need someone to come rescue you, or you need something that you can stand on. Many times we don't know, and I've been in a situation before where someone's treading water and they're tired and they're saying, help me, help me, help me. And they don't realize that the water's not quite all that deep. All they have to do is stand up. If you just stop fighting and stand up, your head will be above water. So maybe you're in a situation where if you stop and just stood up, your head is above water, but that's scary when the water is right under your neck. And that's where many of us are. We can tread water, but if we just stand up until we get some solid foundation, and that's our goal in this class, is to give you a solid foundation so that you can learn to swim from wherever you are and to get to the place where you can be a person that has a positive cash flow, meaning that from the income that you have coming in, your bills are less than what you bring in. But many of us, our outgo is more than our income. And that's what we want to learn, how to flip that so that we can reduce our outgo and increase our income. Even if you didn't increase the income and you reduce the outgo, you should get to a point, where you have more incoming than outgoing. But at the same time, we want to show you how you can use your own skills, your own gifts, everything that God's given you to actually increase your income at the same time. And so here's one thing that I want to say. One of the tendencies in our culture is, this is how we get into those situations where we're either underwater or we are treading water, is that the tendency is in our culture is to spend money that we don't have. When we want something and you really want it, then, even all the way back from college, I can remember myself and other even younger kids, they get applications for credit cards as soon as they graduate from high school. And they don't even have a job yet. They're still working part-time. And I know myself, I purchased a car while I was still working part-time, and I was living with my parents, so I still had positive cash flow. But I learned a lot since then, and that's one of the things I'm going to share with you as we go through today's lesson. But I'm bringing this up because it's not necessarily your fault, and that's really what I want to say. It's not, it's not necessarily your fault that you end up in this situation, because the marketing, everything points you in the direction that you're not as good as everybody else unless you have what everybody else has. You know, you gotta buy the same things, and you feel less than if you don't. And so we want to bring some wholeness so that you can be financially whole as you go through this. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the of what we're going to do in this class and an introduction to next class. And one of the things we're going to do today is we're going to talk about my personal mission statement and my priorities. The purpose for me talking about this is so that you understand me, but also so that you'll end up with a personal mission statement of your own by the end of this class. And that's really what I want to help you to do. And where you can set your eyes on your prize, whatever your goals are, whatever you want to accomplish, we want to set your eyes on that thing. Just like Paul said, I reached towards the mark of a high calling. He set a goal that was in front of him. And you need to set a goal that's in front of you. And we'll start wherever you are now. So where are you now? Don't be afraid of where you are now, but embrace where you are now and learn how to get out of that place. And one of the things we'll talk about is the asset worksheet. We're going to show you how to take that worksheet that's in your packet. And so those of you who are watching this online, if you register for the class, then everyone who registered will end up sending you the packet if you didn't come to class, so that you can have that worksheet. There'll be an asset worksheet and also a debt elimination worksheet. And that's where your homework is that's this week's homework. Some of you who had a prelude to the first class last week or 2 weeks ago, you may have already gotten a jump on this, but if you didn't finish, now you got another week to finish it. And if you need some help, we can help you to do that. But and I'm going to explain the power of compound interest. That is so important. And so I'm going to do that. And then session 2, I want to explain to you what session 2 is all about. Session 2 is where the data that you're going to do for your homework and that you prepared, you're going to come back to class, and I'm going to give you an app, show you how to download an app where the data that you have on your worksheet, on your debt elimination worksheet, you can put in that app, and it'll end up showing you, as you fill that out, how to get out of the debt that you're in. And so that's where we're going to analyze the data from your worksheets. And then from there, you need to know where you want to go. You know, what goals do you have for what you plan to do? And if you don't have any goals, we want to show you how to set some goals, but you need to at least set some goals where you want to go and when. So don't just set a goal and say, well, I want to have X amount of dollars. You need to say when and what you're going to, and we'll show you how to talk about what you're going to do to get there and how long it'll take. And so one of those goals, one of the first primary goals will be getting out of debt, because a lot of what you want to do that you end up going into debt to do, if you had the income, you wouldn't have to go into debt to do it unless you were doing it for what I call good debt. There is a situation about that's good debt, and we'll talk about that, but you have to manage it. And then also in there, we're going to talk about writing your vision, as I mentioned to you, writing your vision, which is going to be homework for session 2, and then make an action plan, which is homework for session 2. So when you come next week, we'll show you how to do that homework and how to get into that. So here is my mission statement and me explaining to you what I believe God's called me to do. I believe God put me on the earth to add value. I've learned this probably maybe 15 years ago. I've learned how, and I wrote this down, I have this written down, where my goal and what God put me in earth to do is to add value to people's lives. That's their personal life, their family life, their financial life, of course. And that's what we're talking about now. Their business life, which may be a part of financial life, but their spiritual life, mental life, and physical life, and social lives. All of those areas of your life, I believe God put me in the earth to help you to add value so that I can help you add value to your life. And I want to add value. I believe that a person's life increases in value. How much you're worth, and even financially, how much you're worth will increase when you discover your passion and learn how to put that passion to work and your purpose and integrate that into those two things together, your purpose and your passion, integrating those two things together into each area of your life. So when you do that in your financial life, your finances will increase. When you increase your passion and your purpose in your family life, then your family life will increase. Your relationships will increase. And I believe that those who are not sure about their passion or their purpose, you need to discover what that is. And one of the things that we have in our church app is you can go right there and take the gifts, the motivational gifts evaluation, and find out what passions you have. And that's a whole different class, but that would be the beginning of it. You can discover what that is. So here's my priorities in sequence. What I've learned since I was 18 years old that I wish I'd known then. And many of you, and I'm sharing it like this because someone asked me to do this, but a good purpose for this is many of you who are watching me, you either have children or grandchildren who are around this age, and you need to get them prepared for this, even if they are 15 years old. Get them prepared for this so that when they are 18, they'll be ready, and they'll have a better start than you and I did. But that's what's important. And so here's what I've learned since I was 18. At the age of 18, I wish I had known the importance of combining what I just talked about, my passion, my skills, my gifts, combining all that together, and my personality. So don't change who you are. You are who you are. Let that be a part of your worth, a part of your value, and let that guide me in search of my career, things that I love to do, and find business opportunities, or even if it's a job, whatever it is, allow those things to guide me there. And then the second thing is I would learn as much as I could about investing. And you can teach this to your children when they're younger. One of the things we did with our oldest grandson, Thomasine, my wife and I, when he was a baby, we started putting away $50 a month, which you don't even miss. I mean, that's like $12 and something a week. We started putting away $50 a month just for him when he was a baby so that we could give that to him when he graduated. And trust me, we did this every week. We had it, automatically withdrawn, and we put it in a mutual fund, and we can talk about those things later. But even before he graduated, there were times when situations would come up this we did for our grandson, but it's still our money. And so if someone needed a couple thousands of dollars that they were going to pay back, then we could say, this is Devin's money, you need to pay it back. But you had it to use for those situations. And I forgot how much we ended up giving him, but it was way more than the $50 a month that we put away. It grew and doubled, and in many cases quadrupled from the time that we first began. And so it's important to save a little bit over time. That's called dollar cost averaging. We might get a chance to talk about that a little bit, but that's part of investing. That's part of the investing scheme. And I would do that as soon as I could, as soon as, to begin a foundation for passive income. Passive income is income that you have coming in without you having to work. It could be done with work that you've already done. Say, for example, if you wrote a book and now that book is selling, you don't have to keep writing that book every week to get money from that book. You've written it once, so that becomes an asset for you. Assets are something that generates income. And so we're talking about how to generate some income based on your motivational gifts, based on the skills that you have. And if you don't have the skills yet, based on your passion and your gifts, you can learn the skills so that maybe 6 months, a year from now, you can actually have an asset that you don't have working already. And you could have that working for you. But I would learn as much as I could to get some passive income going. I will learn how to protect those investments and future earnings with the living trust. And I have a surprise for you. I talked to my financial coach yesterday, and they are willing to, when I get to that class, they're willing to come in to the class and do a teaching on living trust and how important it is and what you need to do that. If you don't have a will, you probably heard people say you need a will, because if you don't have a will, then if you happen to pass away, then someone else is making decisions about your assets. And that someone else is the state of Michigan, if you live in Michigan or whatever state you live in. So if you don't have some things set up, then someone else that you don't even know, that your relatives, that people that you really care about, that you want to leave these assets for, if something happened to you, they don't even know them. Someone else is making those decisions for you. And we want to show you how and how important it is to get those things set up as soon as possible. Don't wait. Get them set up as soon as possible. And then the third thing, I wish I had understood the power of giving a percentage of my income as a means of reinvesting in my community. I've said this many times in teaching. I've been a tither since I was 12 years old. So that's over 50-something years ago that I've been tithing. But one thing that I wasn't taught to do is to even focus on, as I tithe, to have the purpose of increasing my income so I could tithe more and allowing that to be a motivator for me. So right now I'm learning to do that all over again because when I was really going in business, a lot of times we were focused on other things. But now I would love to, how many of you would love to not just pay 10% of your income, but you'd like to be able to give more than that when you want to? If the church that you love and that you care about had a need for something and they needed $5,000 and you say, well, I'll just write that check. Or else, as a group of people did it, say we needed to, for example, we would like to pay this building off. We like to pay this whole place off. And I don't want to do that with people underwater and people who are treading water, because you just don't have the money and you feel guilty. But if I can get you out of debt where you're not underwater and where you're not treading water and you've got extra income, then when you decide that you want to do something, you have the choice to do it. And that's why this is so important, so that you can do that, not just your church, but other nonprofit organizations that you might want to help along the way. The fourth thing, I wish I had understood the power of compound interest and had saved as much as I could, even small amounts. Now, I'm saying since I was 18, and I didn't do this when I was 18, but when I was probably 35, I started doing this. And so this is so important, and this is called the Rule of 72. And I do want to show you, how this works. And I'm going to go over to the board and give you an example of how this works. The Rule of 72 is it's a rule of thumb about compound interest. Compound interest, what it really means is that the interest that you earn on some money, it compounds. The interest that you earn gets added to what you saved, and now that compounds, and interest is now accruing on both of those two things together. And so I'm going to go over to the board here and show you an example of this. And I'm going to use the rule of 72. 72 is the number. That's the magic number. Whatever interest rate that you can get, if you divide that into 72, that's how many years it takes for that money to double. And I've gotten 12% before. I've gotten 18% before. One of my first investments, I invested in it was in stock. The stock we bought the stock for $5 a share. And when I cashed it in, it was worth $32 a share. So you have to understand how that works. But if over time you could get an interest rate, and 12% is a comparable interest rate that you can get and that money managers can get for you, that's aggressive. So you do need to have money in other areas, but you need to have some money that you can put, because there still was a risk with this. The risk was that it would be worth zero, but it ended up being worth $32 a share. And so you can imagine if you bought 100 shares, and that's how you had to do this. You had to buy 100 shares, then that's $500. And now $500 that went to $32, somebody can figure that out for me. You can see what that's worth. And you can see how that grows. That's powerful. But here's how it works. Now I'm going to do 18% to show you how it works quickly. 18 will go into 72 how many times? Do I have any math people here today? Oh, you can get your calculators out, right? You can get your calculators. But it'll go 4 times, right? So if you can get 18%, that means the money that you invest will double every 4 years. Okay? So now let's say you had $1,000, just $1,000. And you're not going to add anything else to it, just $1,000 one time. And you can get 18% on that. And you're 18 years old. You're starting out, you're 18 years old, or your child is 18 years old, or your grandchild is 18 years old. So here at $1,000. Now, 4 years later, you're 22. And now you have $2,000. 4 years later, you're 26. And how much do you have? $4,000. Now, 4 years later, you're 30. How much is that $1,000 worth when you're 30? $8,000. Ooh, you're getting it. Okay? Now, 4 years later, you're 34 years old. How much is that $1,000 grown to? $16,000. You didn't add anything else to this. It's just $1,000. And 4 years later, you're 38. How much do you have? $32,000. Wow. Now it's making a difference, isn't it? I mean, 4 years later, you're 42. How many of you here are 42 years old? Okay. But at 42, you would have $64,000. And now, 4 years later, you're 46. First of all, how much do you think it'll be when you're 60, 65? Just a guess. How much do you think it'll be? About 200,000? Somebody said 200,000, 200K. How much do you think? Just a guess. 250. 250. Anybody else? 200. What you think? Wanda said 5. Wanda, she's a high risker. She's a high roller. All right. 500K. Okay. And we're talking about 65, so we'll see how that works out. Okay, so it's 46, you got what? 128,000? 128,000. That's 128K. 50, 4 years later, you got 256. 54. How much you got? 512. So we broke everybody's imagination already. And you're 54 years old. 58. You've got 1024. So you got $1,024,000. From $1,000 that you never touched again, and you're not even 65 yet. So 4 years later, you're 62. How much you got? $2,048,000. And we said 65, but we can go with 66. 66, because that gives us an even number to do our math with. You got $4,096,000. And once you got here, well, especially once you got here, once you got 62 years old, you could start living off some of this, and it would still, whatever's still in there would continue to double. So once you got this much, you could live off of it and never hit the bottom again. You would always have money. Somebody said this class is about 50 years too late. But it's not too late for your children and your grandchildren. And that's why it's so important for us, because one of my purposes is to leave a legacy. You know, one of the scriptures in Proverbs talks about, a good man leaves basically wealth for his children's children, his grandchildren. And that's how important this is. But I wanted to show you how that works so you can understand compound interest, because compound interest, the same thing works the same way when you look at inflation. There's times when inflation has been that high. How many of you remember when interest rates were like 18%? Well, maybe it was before some of your time, but in the 80s, in the 80s, we lived in that area where we had to do that. And so that's, understand that and put some money to work, even if it's a little bit, as soon as you can, get some money working for you. The fifth thing that I wish I had done when I was 18 is purchase term insurance. I still did this. I did do this early in my life. I probably was in my 30s, maybe late 20s even when I started. But I was young, so I could protect my family if something should happen to me. And term insurance is less expensive than all the other insurances. And there's a whole gamut of different kinds of insurances now that combine term insurance with other things, and we can show you all of that to make a difference without just buying typical whole life insurance that you end up not getting the value of what you could get if you bought term and invest the difference. And that's what that's all about, to the point where you become self-insured. I mean, for example, if you did this when you were younger, by the time you're 62, then you wouldn't need any insurance, right? You're self-insured. If something happens, then that's your estate, and it's still growing. And if you do it right, then it'll continue to grow even as you live off of it. The sixth thing is I would work a job for cash flow. Now, cash flow, again, I'm going to go to the board. Cash flow is money that you make to pay all your bills, even if you are, even if you are putting money away for other things. But Cash flow is the money that comes in, and that's when the key is so that more is coming in than what's going out. So you want cash flow to be positive. You want positive cash flow. If you're underwater, your cash flow is negative, meaning that as it flows in, it's already flowed out. You want positive cash flow. And even if everything is negative right now, we want to show you how to turn things around so that you have positive cash flow. So I would work a job for cash flow as I focused on my passion, gifts, and talents and skills to start a business that I would passionately enjoy owning, something that I would love to do, something that I want to do, something that I'm gifted at, because that's where you're, if you do something where your passion is like that, and you'll find out ways that money will come to you, that you would do it even if money didn't come. But when you find out that money can come to you, you can get positive cash flow. That's the key in doing that. Then I would seek a financial coach or professional and continuously improve my financial education to stay current with financial markets, whatever's going on in the market today, because the markets keeps changing and you need to be up to speed on all of those things. And I wish I had stayed away from bad debt, which is borrowing money for items that depreciate. Again, I'm going to go to the board. Items that depreciate, as you can see on the screen there, some big items that depreciate are like cars. So you have to do a plan for that, because Thomasine and I have only purchased one car cash, and it lasted us. It's on its last leg right now. but our other car, once we paid that off, we didn't have a car payment for probably 4 years since we've had a car payment, and that's been feeling wonderful. And so now we're on a plan. We just purchased another car, and we're on a plan to pay that off early so that we can, again, have no car payments. Because when you don't have no car payment, there's a lot you can do with that money that you're paying on car payment. And the sooner you pay it off, the less you're paying them. Again, that interest rate works just like it did when I showed you how much compound interest works. It works the same way when you borrow money. So when you borrow money, if you take it the whole term, you end up paying more in interest in some cases than the amount of money that you borrowed. And so you want to pay that off as early as you can. So I would stay away from bad debt, learn how to even pay off cars early, but especially TVs and appliances and things like that. You need an emergency fund so that you can pay cash for those things. And it'll come out of that fund. It won't be like this check, I need to put this whole check because I just need to, fix my car or whatever. But that's this, and as I said here, this view of borrowing may be tough to do, but only borrow money you need to for the things that increase in value. If you borrow money for things that increase in value, then if you needed to, if you sold the thing, you'd have enough money to pay off the debt and have some money left. That's what good debt is. Now, number 9, I wish I had paid more attention to passive income, making sure I had cash flow from previous work, ideas, knowledge, whatever your giftings are, instead of only generating income by trading time for dollars. Trading time for dollars is what most people do. That means I go to work, that's my time, and they pay me dollars. Whereas to generate passive income, you can do something that actually becomes an asset. And then once you put that asset to work, that asset starts earning money just like you go to work. And now that asset is working and generating income, even though you set that aside. And so if you can get 2 or 3 assets working, generating income, you could end up where you wouldn't have to work. And that's, work meaning doing something you don't like to do. Okay. Because many times, if you're doing something you like to do, then keep doing it. And especially if somebody's paying you, and you would do it whether they paid you or not. And then number 10, the last thing here, I will make sure that I maintain a balance in life's major areas. And I talk about 6 different major areas. One is spiritual life, and that's God. That's my relationship with God. I would make sure that my relationship with God is tight, and that whatever his purpose for me in the earth, I'm in pursuit of that. I want to find out what that is. And then my family life, I would dedicate time and resources. I would do things a little different than I did. I would dedicate more time to family. I remember before my dad passed away, he wanted me to go fishing with him, and I was always out of town, forever out of town. And he bought a boat and wanted me to go. I finally got a chance to go the last year before he passed away. But there were so many years and so many memories that we didn't create because I was too busy. And when you learn how to do some of these things, you can create time, which most of us don't have. You could have time because you'd have to spend so much time trading time for dollars. And then your mental life, focus on some time on what could be. That's what your mental life is about. What could be, and instead of just what is. So read some books, listen to some tapes, motivational tapes, listen to some word, get your mental game together. And then physical life, keeping your body fit and tuned for optimum use so that no surprises jump up on you. You are ready. But make sure that you are physically fit. And I don't have a lot of time to spend on that, but that is so important. And number 5, financial life. Give at least 10%, save at least 10%, and plan for staying out of debt and live on the rest. So that's a model that I use. And then 6, social life. Develop a concern for how comfortable others are around me and create some lasting relationships in doing that. And so now you should have an asset sheet in your workbooks. And I'm just going to go over a couple things here so that you can work on that. You'll be working on this multiple weeks, but you can start this week. So in your asset, there's 3 columns. There's an asset type, which I've written down some things, like your business, job, whatever job you have. In the asset name, whatever job you have, you put that down there. If you have more than one job, you list multiple. How many have more than one job? How many have a job and a business? But list those, and then we're going to talk about, you may not know what the approximate value is yet, and we're going to talk about how to do that so that you can put approximate value on your talent, approximate value on your skill set, and your job, your business, and whatever, and however many of those things that you have. But along with that, your motivational gifts, your savings account, balance. We're getting into some hard cash things, hard asset things here. Motivational gifts and all the other things, those are soft assets, but they could be worth more than your savings account. That's why it's so important. Emergency fund, and we're going to talk about how important emergency fund is, but just get used to saying that and knowing that you need one. And actually, I think you need more than one, several different areas, and we'll talk about that. Checking account balance and all that stuff. That's all on your asset management sheet, your asset sheet. But then the other sheet that you have is debt elimination worksheet. And this is your homework, your debt elimination worksheet. You'll need, so when we come together next week, I'm going to give you an app that you can use to actually put to work and to put that information into. So although you have your worksheet, that's your personal information. That's not for me to see. That's not for anyone else to see. And you'll put it into your app. So you're not sharing, even though we're all in class together, this is your personal information, and this is something that you'll be working with personally. But what you want to do is, in the first column is the account name, whatever accounts that you have, debts that you owe, including your mortgage, and you put the mortgage down first. And although we're not going to talk about getting out of debt with the mortgage right now, we'll get rid of all the other debt first if you have a mortgage. But then in the second column is the debt type. And on your sheet, there's a list of debt types, that type of debt that it is. And then in the next column, you'll put the balance that you owe. So you need to go through all of your debt, whatever your bills are, find out what the balance is, and put that balance there with this date that you have for this. And then whatever the interest rate is in the next column. And in the last column, you're going to put the minimum payment. Not necessarily what you're paying, but what the minimum payment is. Write that in that column. And that's going to do some amazing things for you when we work this out. So next week, I'll have a spreadsheet on the screen, and I'll show you how this works. But you'll have your own app to do the same thing that I'm going to demonstrate next week when we come together. So I want to close with this, and that's Robert Kiyosaki. How many of you know who Robert Kiyosaki is? You probably know by now, right? I've mentioned him a couple times. But this is my favorite game in the world. And so I have to find people who like to play it with me, but this is my favorite game, and that is cash flow. But Robert Kiyosaki designed this game, and he wrote a book. If you ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you need to get that book and read it. But Robert Kiyosaki said, when it comes to money, your greatest asset is what? Financial knowledge. And so that's what we want to give you a dab of as you go through this class, and then you continue to gain more of that as you go along. So here's some action steps for you. All this is just helping you to do the homework that you have. You're going to find your earning potential. You may not know what that is, but you're going to end up finding that. And you're going to identify every single debt. And then you're going to identify every single asset. Everything that could bring income to you, you're going to identify all of those things. And then you're going to identify your spending habits so that you can change those if necessary by changing your spending habits. So we're going to find your earning potential, identify every single debt, identify every single asset, and identify your spending habits. And we're going to go through that. And at some point, we're going to play cash flow. All right. So that's it for today. Any questions on your homework, you can email me if you get into something that you have questions after. But if you got questions right now, you can ask those questions right now. Any questions right now as we close this out. All right. So, yes. Yes. Okay. So Linda asked the question, does that interest rate stay the same all of those years, all the way from 18 to 66, I think we did too. Yeah, that assumption that we did on the board is with that interest rate not changing, with that being the average interest rate for that whole period of time. And I did 18% to show you, to demonstrate just $1,000. But I can do a demonstration, I may do that next week, where if you put a certain amount of money away weekly, even if you got a more comparable interest rate that's not high, 18% is going to have a high risk. But for that period of time is very possible. But 12% is more realistic, and that means it would double every 6 years. And we could do the same thing. So, but yes, that assumes the same interest rate the whole period of time. All right, any other questions? All right, well, let me pray for you, and then we'll be done. Father, I thank you today for your grace to even do these classes. I pray for everyone that's registered for these classes that will be doing them online, those who are out of state, those who wish they could be here but are working. I pray right now that your grace will be on their lives as they start to dig into their situations and their circumstances, that they will not be overwhelmed, but that you give them the grace and help me to be of help to them so that we can move them and navigate them through these rough places to the place where they're not underwater, they're not just treading water, but they're swimming and even backstroking. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you.